The beginning of reopening in some states. Also, light humidity and heat kill the coronavirus. Did someone say ingest cleaning solvent or UV rays? Every job gained the last 10 years is now gone. Should states be allowed to go bankrupt? $484 billion added to PPP. The Progressive Transformation Agenda, and Biden thinks Trump might delay the election. That and more coming up.
Our only conclusion is that we're getting there, America, because the American people have put into practice the president's guidelines of social distancing, because you've been listening and adhering to the guidance of state and local officials. We're making meaningful progress. Our task force actually believes, Mr. President, that if we continue these mitigation efforts in the days ahead, as states implement their policies, including phased reopening that will preserve those gains, we do believe by early summer we could be in a much better place as a nation.
Welcome to the Buck Sexton Show, everybody. Appreciate you being here. Much to get to today on Friday, and we are starting to see states creep out from mass house arrest. I thought it was so fascinating. Earlier in the week, the Attorney General referred to this as house arrest, and people were saying that they didn't like that. What would they call this? This is not quarantine. Quarantine is what you do with people who are sick. We are quarantining 99.99% healthy people. So it's not quarantine. It is also now a state mandate in most places. So that's right. This is house arrest for your own health. That's what they've been telling you. But some states are now moving toward open status for different businesses, not all businesses, some of them. Here's the Wall Street Journal reporting that Macy's, Gap, and TGI Friday are among the major national chains that are saying they're going to sit out the early phase of reopening in states like Georgia and South Carolina because of health concerns. Best Buy, Starbucks also continuing in lockdown mode, although they're allowing stores to do online orders or curbside pickup in those cases. So we're going to see. We're going to see as this experiment plays out in states how well they do. And I would just note that in some of these states, it would be completely bizarre for them to have a major outbreak, given how small the outbreak has been in that state to this point. And that includes a period of time that was at least a month, maybe a couple of months, during which there were no procedures, no precautions in place whatsoever. So why would North Carolina or Texas see some kind of spike? Why would that happen? Doesn't seem rational, does it, to believe that that's going to... Now, there's still going to be precautions in place, right? There's still going to be those mitigation measures that we're all so familiar with. I've got to say, I don't think I really need to see any more celebrity or newscaster wash your hands PSAs. I think we get it at this point. But everyone's like, wash your hands for as long as you sing happy birthday. And everyone is also, I'm glad to see, getting tired of the Orwellian propaganda that's out there for different companies and all this stuff. You know, there's a lot of this. Look, I get it. We should, to the degree we can, we should all come together and we should find ways to be as positive as we can in the moment. I try to do that here on this show. But there's some stuff that's a little funny. I mean, how many companies really, and there's some great montages out there online right now, how many companies need to have somber piano music play and then they show a montage of people walking through fields of grain and then sunny days and then a babbling brook and then a beautiful suspension bridge over a non-distinct part of the country and then more people holding hands, perhaps in a field of grain, and you know, the piano. We don't need that. We get it. We can handle our own music. We've all got iTunes or Spotify or whatever it is. We don't really need this, but this is what keeps happening. I'm getting more emails than I've ever gotten before in my life. And what's amazing is that a lot of them are from companies. You know, if I bought a tea set from, you know, teasets.com or something 15 years ago, I get an email that says, just want to inform you about our policies regarding COVID-19. I'm like, I don't think we need this email. But we all know that people also recognize that we're captive audiences. And so they're trying to build their email lists and their audience share. So there are business motivations behind some of this too. But the businesses that are opening, back to this state by state here, Dick's Sporting Goods, for example, opened some stores in South Carolina, Iowa, Nebraska, Oklahoma, and Virginia. And they moved to curbside pickup and online orders only last month, telling people they're taking measures to make sure that they're safe. Look, this is what needs to happen. And really, in a lot of these states, this should have happened a few weeks ago. And I am very confident. I can't predict the future, as you know. I don't pretend. A lot of people do. I don't pretend. But I am confident that we'll see that these states will do pretty well going forward. Remember this, too, though. And this has gotten lost in our public policy proclamations from the experts, from the intelligentsia around this. Flatten the curve was never until the disease is gone. So it is built in, and I have been telling you this all along because I will speak the truth, even when people are yelling that the truth means you want grandma to die for your stock market account, right? Which is stupid, but people say these things. The truth is that there was always going to be a period in which we would have to take additional risk because of the systemic pressures on our economy and to keep our way of life going so we can feed ourselves, so that we can have medical facilities that operate and function to fight against this disease. Shutting down the country until we had a miracle cure was never the plan. But some people started to think it was the plan, or at least act like that was the plan. And this is a way of just reminding ourselves that there will be more cases. There will be more cases of COVID-19 as these states reopen. I don't think it's going to be what you would consider a huge spike in cases in any of these places, but we've obviously already suffered terribly from this. You have about 50,000 dead today. That's the marker that everyone's looking at. And there are going to be more people who get sick. There are going to be more people who die. I mean, I pray every day that none of my loved ones or friends, or myself, honestly, get some terrible version of this disease. We don't want anyone to get this a terrible version of this disease. But all we can really do is our best and pray and hope. There is no future in which we don't have to deal with this at all. And a lot of you, your life is not really going to be that much affected by this once the state stops telling you, stay in your house, peasant, you can't go to your job. Right? That's going to change. When that changes, then you'll be able to pretty much do what you have been doing for the most part. It depends. Some states are worse hit than others. Georgia's allowing hair salons, bowling alleys, etc. to open today. Theaters and restaurants are opening next week. South Carolina's governor is allowing retail stores to resume operations this week at 20% of normal capacity, or 5 people per 1,000 square feet, according to the Wall Street Journal here. This is going to be interesting to see how long we actually extend this too, because if we don't see the major spike in cases after this, at least not until the fall, when we'll talk more about this, but what does the second wave look like? The pressure is going to be very high to continue to drop off these mitigation measures. And then if we have a big resurgence in the fall, we'll see. I mean, I'm just going to say it, if our global medical community, when we are in what is effectively a world war against a virus, if our medical community can't come up with a better treatment for this than what we've had so far, I think we're allowed to be really disappointed. Okay. I think, this is like what everybody around the world who has any medical background should be spending every waking moment thinking about, trying to find and I'm talking about people that are researchers that are looking for cures. I'm not talking about doctors and nurses who have to take care of patients, but I mean the medical research community. Man, we got to come up with something here, guys. Come on. This is becoming an existential threat to certain civilizations and ways of life around the world, largely because of our reaction to it, but not entirely. It's obviously a terrible disease that's killing a lot of people. So we'll see how it goes in these different states that are early among those that are reopening, and it's going to make a big difference to how quickly all the rest of this goes. Now, that's an important story. You also have the $484 billion addition to the PPP, so Paycheck Protection Program. I think we should call it the P3. I don't know why no one listens to me. There's probably another thing that's a P3, but we could call this one the P3. So there's a bunch of important news stories today. But what do you think last night during the press conference? What do you think last night was the single most focused on part of everything? We got states reopening, huge congressional spending bill going through. We're spending trillions of dollars, unprecedented national emergency. This is a little bit dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria. I mean, this is the most I've ever been close to that in my life. I mean, this is, I think all of us would recognize. And what do you think they focus on? Trump kind of musing off the cuff and just trying to have a Trump moment here with one of the doctors. We'll get into this.
A question that probably some of you are thinking of if you're totally into that world, which I find to be very interesting. So supposing we hit the body with a tremendous, whether it's ultraviolet or just very powerful light, and I think you said that hasn't been checked, but you're going to test it. And then I said, supposing you brought the light inside the body, which you can do either through the skin or in some other way. And I think you said you're going to test that, too. Sounds interesting.
If the right folks who could.
Right, and then I see the disinfectant, where it knocks it out in a minute, 1 minute. And is there a way we can do something like that by injection inside or almost a cleaning? Because you see it gets on the lungs and it does a tremendous number of the lungs. So it'd be interesting to check that. So that you're going to have to use medical doctors with. But it sounds interesting to me. So we'll see, but the whole concept of the light, the way it kills it in 1 minute, that's pretty powerful.
All right, so the news, which came out last night during the press conference, the news was that the Department of Homeland Security had been running a series of tests on coronavirus, on actual coronavirus samples, using UV light, so mimicking sunlight, and using heat and humidity. And it turns out that heat, humidity, and ultraviolet rays kills the virus quickly. In some cases, very quickly, like 30 seconds quickly. So this is a reminder of what all of us already knew, which is that sunlight and fresh air and being outside is not what the virus likes. The virus likes indoors, cool temperatures, and it probably likes, central heating and air conditioning systems too, but that's a conversation for another time. We don't know about that data, but I've seen some theories about how, centralized air systems, for example, probably not a good thing, especially because the virus likes dry, cold air. What comes out of AC? What comes out of heating and cooling units? Dry. Well, if it's cold, obviously dry, cold air, keeping it right at about 70 degrees, which is where the virus loves cold, dry air at, 60 to 70 degrees. So we saw all this science that says sunlight is, in fact, a disinfectant here for the virus. I wouldn't say it's the best disinfectant, quoting the Supreme Court justice, but it is a disinfectant. And heat above a certain level and humidity above a certain level also kills the virus very quickly. So this means that going to a beach in Miami in 80-degree weather, unless someone like coughs or sneezes their virus in your face, you're really because it can't really live on surfaces and it can't really live on the air. So what's the big risk? Now, I'm not saying there's no risk, but there's risk, again, to borrow from Al Pacino in Heat. You get killed walking your doggy. You ever see that movie, Producer Mark?
I have not.
Oh, my God.
I really just have to start saying yes so you don't rant.
I think Producer Nick, he's probably as appalled as I am right now. We just had the Heat 25-year anniversary or something. All right, it's all right. I'm just gonna let it go for now. But you would actually really like it, so I'm just gonna put that out there. And it probably has the best gun battle ever, police versus bad guys gun battle ever taped in a movie. It's that good. So I'm just gonna put that out there for you. Okay. Anyone who hasn't seen it this weekend, great movie to check out. I'm sure you can get it on Amazon Prime. It might even be on Netflix now. So the president then decided to do what he does sometimes, where he, based on the science, he starts kind of being Trumpy. He's like, hey, maybe we could, we put it inside and we do the, It'd be great. It'd be the best if we could kill the virus this way. He's doing his Trump thing. No one he's making conversation. This is how he talks. The media pretends like they still don't understand this. This is just how he talks. He's not making a proclamation. He's not trying to give people unsound medical advice. This is just Trump being Trump. And and they just, oh man, they've all flipped out. Oh, Trump's telling people to drink hand sanitizer. Trump wants people to shoot UV rays inside their bodies. There is a trend among wellness advocates of sunning oneself where the sun don't shine, if you get my drift. And there's even a name for it, which I don't even know. I think it's anatomically correct, but I don't want to say it on the air because it's rather explicit. But that's a real thing, to get UV rays into the place where the sun don't shine. This is a thing. It's a trend among wellness experts. New York Post has reported on it. So anyway, they've all flipped out now because Trump said this thing. And this is ABC's Jonathan Karl, who Trump has really given a piece of his mind to recently, drilling down on whether Trump is saying bleach should be injected into human beings. Play 6.
The president mentioned the idea of cleaners with bleach and isopropyl alcohol. You mentioned there's no scenario that could be injected into a person, is there?
No, I'm here to talk about the findings that we had in the study. We don't do that within that lab, our lab. So
Are we simplifying through injection? We're talking about almost a cleaning, sterilization of an area.
Right.
Maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work, but it certainly has a big effect if it's on a stationary object.
Does anyone really think that Trump is saying inject cleaning fluid into your body? He was trying to say, maybe with the UV findings, there'd be a way, because you guys are medical wizards, you do the thing with the this and then that. Everyone understands what he's doing. He's not really giving anyone medical advice. He's just trying to pat these guys on the back. It would be like if he brought up a bunch of Navy SEALs and, they had just had a successful raid somewhere. And then as they were walking off stage, he was like, yeah, that's great. When you guys get the grenade machine gun and you get the bad guy with the good job, guys. It's like, well, they're not carrying grenade machine guns, but that's not the point, right? He's not trying to feign expertise here. I'm telling you, this was the biggest. And producer Mark, right? You saw this all over the place too. People now there's all these think pieces about whether Trump is telling people to inject themselves with rubbing alcohol.
Yeah, I got a syringe and everything ready for myself because I thought that's what I had to do.
Oh man. It's amazing. And Hillary Clinton even jumped on this bandwagon. I'm trying to see if I have it here. She jumped on this bandwagon too, saying, that don't do this. Don't listen to the president. No one with an IQ above a toaster thinks that the president is telling people to just go off on their own. And what are you're gonna find your UV ray gun and try to give yourself some UV and down the throat? It's crazy. It's crazy. But they have lost their minds. And this is a way to attack Trump. And if it's a way to attack Trump, it must be worthwhile. So guess what they're doing? Using this to attack Trump.
But they had to fill time with something beyond that ridiculous claim by the president that he wasted everybody's time with. And you saw Dr. Birx. Ron Fournier had the greatest tweet. Watch her soul slowly die.
I have nothing but respect.
She was so disgusted with him.
She was so disgusted with him. Look, they're never going to give this up. They're never going to stop with this. We cannot understand Donald Trump. We refuse to speak Trump, even though the thing about Trumpies is that everyone can speak, or Trumpish. Everyone can speak it. Everyone understands how he's trying to communicate. The only people who don't are pretending not to. All right, the guy was just, he's like excited about some science. The country's going through a pandemic. He speaks a lot off the cuff. Notice, though, the difference between the way they treat every utterance that Trump makes that's a little bit Trumpy, and with Joe Biden, who sounds like a person who's suffering from early stage dementia. Honestly, I mean, he really does, and they won't even talk about it. I mean, these people are out of their minds. They're not to be trusted. They're not honest. They're not ethical. And then they just tisk at all of us and look down their nose. Oh, how could you support Trump? How could you support Trump? How could you support the loon living in the basement who doesn't know anything and doesn't even know where he is? Oh, that guy's going to make everything so much better. But as we know, it's just all. He's really going to be a puppet emperor if they manage to make him president. It's really just about the Democratic establishment, the DNC, the liberal media, having someone who's a vessel for their wants and desires. There's no leadership. No one thinks Joe Biden couldn't lead you to the cookie jar during a midnight snack. But here we are. Here we are, nonetheless. Willie Geist. I don't know Willie, but I know a little bit of his work, and he always seemed like a nice dude. I don't know. He's always seemed like a nice guy, but, he's still, I guess he sits on the Morning Joe panel, and around those two, remember those two who were super tight with Trump. They are the high school. This is like the mean girls in high school when the queen bee isn't nice to them anymore, and now they'll just never let it go. And the mean girls in this case are Joe Scarborough and Mika Brzezinski. They're like, Trump is terrible. We hate him forever. Trump is the worst. Like, we used to hang and be cool, and now we don't get to. Destroying the country. And then even Willie Geist is saying this stuff. Willie! Like I said, I just know the man through his work. I don't know him personally, but I thought he was better than this. Play one.
Every moment that we spend on this deeply unserious, embarrassing conversation about injecting light and disinfectant into your body is a moment that we're not working on testing, a moment that we're not working on the fall, because Dr. Fauci, despite the president's wishful thinking, and basically every other public health expert you talk to says it's coming back in the fall. And by the way, the director of the CDC says, watch out for next winter. So it's not like this is going to disappear, as the president has said. It's going to be with us. So what are we doing every moment of every day to fight it? What are we doing every moment of every day to stop it from being as bad in the fall as it is now? And if you're tying your doctors in knots with some weird, crazy idea you have about injecting light into people's bodies, you're wasting their time and you're putting the country at risk. Get serious.
No, Mr. Geist is wasting our time here. No one thinks that the president's tying his doctors in knots with these theories. People ask, and any doctor that you talk to will tell you this, because I've been one of the people that I think at different times you get a little nervous about something. People ask dumbass questions to doctors and scientists all the time. Okay, this is not unusual. And the president, one of the reasons that he understands so many Americans and there's such a connection between him and so many Americans is because he's like a normal person. He does not speak like some politically trained robot. He's not sitting there, I read the polls and this is what it tells me. He's like, look, I mean, maybe you get the injection here, you do the light or something. He's just trying to say to people, this is good news about the light and that there are ways clearly outdoors is better than being stuck inside, which also is a reminder to everybody, hey, maybe we should open up the parks. Maybe we should allow people to go to the beach. Maybe we, don't you think? Oh, no, people aren't social distancing enough in parks with masks on. Are we all supposed to go to the park with a hazmat suit on? This is idiotic. Your chance of getting COVID from somebody who is not in physical touching distance of you on a warm, sunny day in a park based on the science or on a beach, on a biking trail, on a hiking trail, out in an open street. On a warm, sunny day, your chance of just getting it, unless someone comes up to you and coughs right into your face, is almost zero. But parks are shut down. Oh, we have the social distancing police running around. Citizens, you must disperse. They got the drone here in New York. You must disperse. Social distancing. My mask came down a little bit when I was at the grocery store. I know that's an indoor environment, but it just came down a little bit for a second. Someone came running over. It was like I had spilled nuclear material on their floor. You know, it's like, excuse me, sir, don't drop your plutonium here. I'm like, oh, buddy, okay, it just slipped down for a second. I have a mask on, I'm putting it back up. You know, everyone here in New York is totally freaked out. But notice the media focuses in. Last night, there was all this talk. And what I do is I watch as much of the press conference as I can, but I've obviously got to do this show. Where I have to do shows. And then the next day, I always read the full transcript. There's all this talk about everything that the president's doing. You know, Willie Geist is here saying, and look, he's just representative of this broader media moment where the president spends in an hour-long press conference, 90% of the time. First of all, it's not even him speaking most of the time, or maybe it's about 50-50 him and other people who are experts. But 90% of that press conference is, oh, man, we're making so much progress on ventilators. Why don't you hear about ventilators anymore, folks? You notice that? Oh, it turns out that there's actually a lot of really good news there. The president promised that by harnessing the power of the American economy, this was Mike Pence, we would have 100,000 ventilators in 100 days. But thanks to the ingenuity and the hardworking Americans that I was with, this is, again, the vice president, and other companies, we're actually going to have 110,000 ventilators in 100 days. Are we going to need 110,000 ventilators? No, probably not. Walmart is producing 8.4 million gowns, and they'll be delivered into our commercial supply to healthcare facilities around the country. They're hardly alone. Honda is producing 500,000 face shields. New Balance is making 100,000 masks a week. I mean, the press conference is data, data, data. What are we doing? What are we doing? What are we doing? Expert, expert, expert. But then Trump makes a kind of offhand, just sort of stage left soliloquy almost. Just kind of like, maybe you get the virus with the thing and the this and the that, and okay, And now the press is like, he's putting everyone in danger. And they say this about hydroxychloroquine, too, which is an FDA-approved drug that's been around for 50 years. He's putting everyone in danger. Do any of them do they have even like a shred of integrity? There are things sometimes that Trump says or does, and I'm like, oh, gosh, come on, man. It's not perfect. I admit that. There are things about him that I'm like, but I think overall, the guy's done a really good job as president. I'm with him on the agenda. I love the way he smacks around the media. It's absolutely deserved. What, do we really want to go back to the era of the Mitt Romneys of the Republican Party where they're like, oh, I'm sorry, New York Times, please stop beating me? No, I don't think so. But here we have a press conference that was full of information that's relevant. We have states reopening. We have a massive economic problem that we're trying to make sure does not effectively destroy our republic, which I don't think will happen, but those are really the parameters. Those are the risks. We have millions of people who are suffering terribly right now. Their jobs are gone. Their life's work can be gone. A lot of these libs that go from journo school or some second or third tier liberal arts program, and then they end up showing up at, CBS or ABC or CNN or something. They don't understand that for a lot of people, they work an hourly job, a shift job for years, and then finally they save up enough money and maybe they're in a position to start a small business and the margins are small, but that could represent 10, 15, 20 years of work for somebody. And it's gone now. It's just gone. In states, in some cases, where there are like 300 people who have died from this virus, when there are millions of people living in the state. There's real stuff going on. There's important stuff going on. There's tragic stuff going on. And we have to sit here. I mean, you're like, Buck, why are you talking about it? Because just stop watching these people. Don't believe them. Don't give them your attention. For some reason, there are still, I think it's 8 million people a day watching that glorified male model who's on ABC News Tonight. No one's ever seen the guy except on that show. There's a reason for that, folks. Because they don't want him to be sitting in an interview. They're like, well, I don't actually have any thoughts, but I look really good on camera. I don't. Who's that? Muir? Is it Muir? Is that his name? Right? Muir. I mean, I'm not pretending to not know his name. I just get the different channels confused. Pretending you don't know someone's name when you do, by the way, isn't that the most pathetic and absurd thing? Isn't that just like a ridiculous thing that only a deeply insecure person who's dishonest would do? So anyway, I just... I sit here and I have to smack down the falsehoods because they drive me nuts, because I wish, the same way that I have said to you, and people were just spitting their coffee out when I said it. Hopefully Black Rifle coffee, because it's delicious. And don't spit it out, drink it all. But, you know, I sit there and I say, like, de Blasio, I wish he was the second coming of Winston Churchill. And I know everyone laughs because he's horrible. I mean, he's whatever. You know, he is the opposite of Winston Churchill. But you know, I also wish that we had a news media that was really just, they just for now could put aside how much they hate Trump and just focus on bringing the best information to the American people possible, and really focusing on the science and the data and keeping everybody calm but informed. You know, go back to what they at least pretended to be in the pre-internet days. Which there were libs and they were being dishonest there too, but at least they were better at hiding it. But no, they've actually gotten worse. They've gotten worse during this whole period, which is remarkable because they were terrible before we entered the pandemic, and somehow they've been able to take the dial to 11.
I've spoken to Mitch about it. I've spoken to numerous senators about it. And we're working with senators that are on the other side of the issue, and we'll see what happens. But we're looking to do what's right for the people of this country. We're looking to do what's right for a particular state, and we'll see what happens. But it's certainly the next thing we're going to be discussing, because some states have, in all fairness, John, some states have not done very well for many years. I'm open to ideas that are going to be great for the people of this country. And if we can help states, we're always going to help states. Now, there's different ways of helping states. Some ways are better than others. So we're looking. It is interesting that the states that are in trouble do happen to be blue. It is interesting. You know, if you look around, I mean, the states that seem to have the problem happen to be Democrat.
It is interesting. That's true. A few layers here, a few different things going on with what the president's talking about. First is that this is largely in reaction to the back and forth between Senator Mitch McConnell and Governor Andrew Cuomo here in New York. Mitch McConnell, obviously, of Kentucky. Mitch McConnell. Cocaine Mitch been doing a good job. I think Mitch McConnell has cemented his legacy just merely by making sure that the lean, mean judge confirmation machine just keeps on going. So Mitch McConnell, I got a lot of good things to say about Mitch and not a lot of bad things, not lately. But he and Cuomo have this back and forth because Mitch McConnell's like, maybe the states should be able to go bankrupt. Because here's what's happening. There's a huge difference that needs to be established. There's the losses incurred. Just like if you're running a business with 10 employees and they're saying, okay, we're going to give you money, show us your payroll from a month ago, right? Don't show us your payroll in the future. We'll reimburse you. That's the Paycheck Protection Program based on what your expenses actually are. We should think about states that have been hit really hard. Some of you aren't going to like this, but this is true. States that have been hit really hard, like New York. Florida, I don't think, has been hit. Well, a lot of states are going to have a really rough time with their budget, even if they didn't get hit that badly by the virus. But shutdowns directly related to the virus and the economic impact of that, you know, that's something that's at least there's a real discussion to be had about federal assistance, federal financial assistance there. But the problem, and everyone sees this, is that these states, the blue states, run enormous yearly deficits. Right, states like New York, I was going to say Chicago, which is basically is the Illinois deficit, but in Illinois, because of Chicago, they're running so deep in the red, and they've built up billions and billions of dollars of debt, and then the liabilities they have, and the liabilities are very straightforward, folks. It's not because they're doing so much great stuff for you. It is public sector union payoffs. And the big one is the teachers union in these states, in these Democrat strongholds, a huge source of political and financial, well, those things are tied together, obviously, muscle. It's really the engine room of the Democratic Party these days is the teachers unions in a lot of these states. It's an enormous source of funding and political support and indoctrination of kids. We're going to talk later on in the show about homeschooling in this article, because a lot of people are homeschooling now because they have to. So everyone's getting a little bit of a homeschool experience going on here, or at least a lot of people are. I think pretty much everyone who's got a kid at home has to be doing some version of homeschooling, maybe not that well, but others are doing very well with it, and they really like it. And the establishment is really unsettled by it. But that's coming later on in the show. But here's what can't be allowed to happen. I think this is what Mitch McConnell was going for. We can't have a bailout of Democrat blue states for what they've been doing, for the debts they've been accruing for the last 20 or 30 years. That cannot be allowed to happen. The states have to live in the beds that they have made, so to speak, with that stuff. What's happened in the last few months or this quarter, there's going to need to be some help. There's going to need to be some help. But what has been the reality of these states for a long time? No, we're not going to socialize the losses of the Chicago Teachers Union across the entire country. We're not going to do that. They want that to happen. And given the amount of money that's out there right now, can't you think of the appeal here? Think of the political opportunity. What's $10 billion to pay off the teachers union in New York City when you got $500 billion changing hands and no one even really knows what's in it? And you got more money coming out soon. And now you got an infrastructure package coming out, they're saying. I mean, we're spending trillions, like, Producer Mark buying drinks for everybody at the bar. It's like everything's on the house, right, Producer Mark?
Absolutely not.